session. So I'm going to put myself on mute so you guys can take it away.
Yeah, I just want to welcome everybody. I'm Marjorie Gilsrud, as Emily had said, and we just want to make everybody aware of the fact that because you live in a ROC, you are already a member of the ROC Association. It isn't like a special club or group or anything. You are automatically a member of the ROC Association. I am the ROC Association director for the Midwest, South, and East, and Kim is the ROC Association director for the New England states. And then there's another director, Lori, that does the Mountain West region. And Bobby is one of the co-chairs for the Outreach and Education Committee. There's also another committee that's Policy and Procedure. Both of them are committees from the ROC Association. And Tina is from Washington State, right? And I believe the name of her community is Takesa. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but and she is active in both of those committees. And with that, I will turn it over to Kim, and he will get us started for the evening.
Hello, everyone, and my name is Kim Capon. I am the president of Medville Cooperative in Goffstown, New Hampshire, and I've served on that board for and several committees in my community for 14 years that I've lived here. Tonight, I'm going to ponder a lot of questions as we explore board recruitment. And I will speak mostly about creating an environment that is conducive for recruiting for any opportunity of service you have in the community, whether for the board, committees, or for special projects. Remember, committees can be the pipeline for recruiting the board. First things first, why would anyone want to serve on the board or volunteer in any position for that matter? Is the environment in your community conducive for members to want to step up? That's mostly about what I'm going to talk about, is just creating an environment that would be conducive for people to say, I want to step up and step out. Does the board position look inviting at all? Does the board member position just look like a target for complaints? Quite often we look at ourselves in that way, that we're basically here because we're the complaint department. People who care and people who feel an obligation to contribute are the ones who volunteer. This is not a paid position, at times not very glorious, and it takes up personal time that could be spent elsewhere. People need to know what's in it for them. Our hope is to answer that with a sense of obligation to give back. Successful recruitment comes down to what is the environment we are providing for people to care. What reasons could you give a member who asks why they should care? Why should somebody care? Any takers on the question?
Because it's our community and we live here.
Yes.
We
Does
own
everybody feel like it's their community? Why do members care? Because they have a sense of it's their community. They do because, to start with, they know what to care about. That makes too much sense. You can't care unless you know what you're caring about. And you'll hear me repeat that a few times just to let it sink in that, wow, that makes too much sense. So they do because, to start with, they know what to care about. They have an awareness of all that is going on in their community. They have a sense that they have some of the skills needed and an interest in helping. How do we get them to care? We start with what I call passive engagement. Are we intentional about making sure we are completely transparent? And are we communicating the business of the community with all the modes of communication available to us. Why is transparency important? I would suggest that transparency is avoided many times because we don't want to be second guessed or criticized. The less they know, the less they can criticize how I'm doing. How much of the community's business is conducted over emails? That's a lack of transparency. And are all board members involved in that email? Openness prevents and mitigates criticism as the board gets to explain the what's, the whys, and is able to provide forums for input from members. One of the things we want is member input because without it, they have no sense of caring. Most importantly, it builds trust in the board. I repeat, it builds trust in the board. In many cases, the board loses the community because the community does not trust the board. And sometimes for no apparent reason other than that they just don't know what's going on. And without answers, they come up with their own answers as to why something is the way it is. So in any case, most importantly, it builds trust in the community is what we're talking about. Is that not to say that all your decisions will be perfect, but people generally understand that perfection is not possible, but honesty and transparency is. They begin to learn that when volunteering, perfection is not required, just honesty and openness. We become an open society. We model what it is to be a cooperative. Everyone has an ownership interest, and that needs to be ingrained in the cooperative's DNA. Everyone has an ownership interest, and that needs to be ingrained in the cooperative's DNA. It will, I'm not repeating because I'm reading it twice, I'm repeating because I think it's important. It will be as the membership becomes better informed of the business of the cooperative. Start out by thinking about all that you do as a board member that all members should know about or have access to. What cannot be public information? It really should be most everything is public except something that is of personal nature. When you're talking about people, that's of a personal nature and is not public information. But there isn't much else that can't be made public. Serving on the board cannot be a mystery. Again, you cannot care if you do not know what you're to care about. If you do not care, you do not contribute. Are your board meetings often consistent and open, as in to say, are they the same time every month or every other week, or how often you hold them on the same day so that there's some consistency and people know when they are? For those that complain, are they encouraged to attend meetings? Are the minutes of your meetings published or posted? Do you conduct most of if not all of the business of the community in board meetings for all board members' input? What modes of communication do you use to convey the community's business? Do you have an informative and fun newsletter that published regularly and consistently? Do you have bulletin boards at your mail houses? Is it possible to broadcast your board meetings on Facebook or Zoom? Think about all the possible ways you can communicate, and whatever is possible, use it. Not everyone gets their information the same way, and sometimes it takes a couple of ways before the message gets through. Eventually, people will access the information and take an interest, and that passive engagement now has an opportunity to become active engagement and sets the stage and the mood for yes when asked. Medville has been at it for 15 years, and we are always looking at new ways to communicate to the members and to provide forums for them to communicate to each other and to the board. We just started. We've come off this COVID situation with holding all of our meetings over Zoom, and some of our members said, "This Zoom thing is great. I can go to the board meeting and from my living room." And so, what did we do? We said, another opportunity. We bought a communication tool that sits in our board table and broadcast the board meeting to anyone in the community who wants to tune in. So it's, we've been at it for 15 years and we're always thinking of new ways to better communicate what's going on in our community. About board positions. Do you have an outline of duties and responsibilities for each position that lets prospective candidates know what is expected of them? You would not apply for a position without feeling you were qualified for it. How do you go about finding out who has what skills in your community? It's sort of, in a larger community, it's difficult to go ask people, what are you good at? There's too many people. Recruiting should be an everyday effort. What does that mean? Do you have a volunteer interest sheet that you have for all new members to fill out, showing their talents, hobbies, along with a list of all the ways for them to connect as a volunteer on a volunteer basis? Do you set the stage in the interview process for new members that sets up the expectations of supporting the cooperative as a member? I think one of the things that we do fairly well is that we have a membership process that vets people, and it lets them know that we're a cooperative and understanding what a cooperative is, and then what is expected of a cooperative member. And we set an expectation that they will not only volunteer, they will want to volunteer. And so we do our best to communicate all the reasons they should volunteer. That is, to know what's going on in the community. How do you recruit board members? Do you have a nominating committee that seeks out interested persons to run for the board positions annually? We tag team it with 4 or 5 people in the community to just go out and seek people and to look at their resumes to see if they showed an interest in serving on the board. When I came to my community about 6 months after it was purchased, it was in a state of utter chaos. And I tell you this only because I want you to know that we started from scratch as well. We didn't start off in our community with a robust community of volunteers. The first board had 4 members resign after the first 6 months. That was our first board. And I was one of those replacements as the treasurer. Now I lived here for a total of 3 or 4 days, and I didn't even know what a cooperative was, and now I was the treasurer of it. Anyway, in the first 2 years, 2 groups of members filed lawsuits against the board of directors for lack of transparency and disregard for the rules and bylaws. No one trusted the board, and the word around town was that Medville was not a good place to buy. Stay away from those crazy people. Today, in contrast, we have a waiting list of people who want to purchase here. The community was the Reader's Choice Best Over 55 community in the state of New Hampshire. And we held that distinction for 3 years in a row. People now have a reason to care and to contribute. It was a long journey that awaited us, but that was shortened a great deal by starting out with intentional efforts at transparency and communication. Job 1 was to build trust in the board. Every month, a listening session was where all members were invited to attend and voice their concerns and to learn to get to the truth of all rumors. It was not long before members realized that serving on committees and on the board was an honorable thing to do and a way to contribute, a way to give back. It will always be a challenge to recruit officer members of the board. It is everywhere, and it is especially for us because we are a self-managed community. So officer board members have pretty much a full-time job. And it requires a lot of personal time because of that. But every year, the other board positions are contested with several candidates to choose from during our elections. We always have elections that have, we've had elections where even the officers were contested positions, but we always have contested positions for directors at large. And we have a 9-member board. And speaking with other cooperatives who have been successful at member engagement, they all have several things in common. They diligently strive for transparency, make use of effective communication tools, and they have an active social environment. I haven't talked too much about the social environment, but that's just another way to come back at getting people involved in the community and then having a sense of wanting to give back. The specific steps to recruiting board members and committee members may not be one size fits all, but the concept of creating their environment for engagement is a necessary step that does fit all. And taking those steps to creating such an environment needs to be an intentional and a sustained effort. Enjoy the journey, and day to day, and week by week, and month by month, you will see the fruits of your efforts. Remember, be creative, always looking for ways to be better at everything that we do. Again, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here, and we'll take questions later on in this, toward the end of this experience, and I'll be here to answer your questions for as long as you got questions. So thanks again.
Thanks, Kim. I'm going to introduce Tina McKinstry from Meade, Washington, into Casa Village, and she is going to take and talk about more board recruitment options.
Yeah, my name is Tina. I am current board president at Casa Village in Meade, Washington, which sits just outside of Spokane. I've been doing it for about 5 years, and like most co-ops, we did start out rough. And that is one of the things that we're always looking for, is to recruit people for board seats and chairs. And so what has worked in my world and some of the things that we've tried here is you kind of have to have a little bit of the, I always have to have little post-its or sayings and things that kind of help get people to understand where you're coming from. And one of them is a Zig Ziglar quote that says, "You can't be upset at the results you didn't get from the work you didn't do." So that can really hit home for people when they're coming at you all the time, because they're really involved when they have an issue, but that it's learning to take that and flip it the other way, not to make it personal. So it's easier to just flip the cap around. And if a member approaches you with this mucho passion that they have, or they're on the warpath for whatever the issue is, that should be something that you should be able to use. Take that energy, really listen to what they have to say, and then ask them some open-ended questions. A bit after some of the steam is let loose, I'm like, well, what would fix this? What would you do? Or what kind of research or calls could you make on this? And then, like, when could we talk again? Then I pretty much at that point, I have them hooked. They're generally a bit calmer and now focused on a solution instead of just the problem. And then I go for it. I tell them, well, we have committees that could really use your passion for this. Could you help with getting some bids or, little small steps? So it only takes a few minutes of their time. They don't feel like they're so overwhelmed by this huge task. If it's simply something like just trees or barking dog issues or something little, that they can kind of sink their teeth into that part and then feel like they're part of something bigger and that they're actually making a connection. And then I'll set up a time, like, when can I check back in with you? And I'll call you in 2 days and we can talk about it again. And let them know that's part of being the perk. That's part of being the perk of being part owner in something. You're part of the engine that gets this corrected. And a lot of times, you have to remind them that we're a cooperative. We're all here to do this together, and every little bit helps. And a lot of times they go, but I don't want to do a lot of the other stuff, or I can't really make that big of a difference. And there's this African proverb that says, if you think you're too small to make a difference, you haven't spent a night with a mosquito. So every little bit helps and every little bit gets them involved. Then you have more conversations with members in passing that helps them feel comfortable enough to think that volunteering is actually something that maybe they're able to do. Also, you can take the power out of the title. Some members get involved, some things, because there's a title involved. And sometimes that's for the wrong reasons. Or they like to be set apart from others and really embellish their title, which causes others to step away and feel like they're not part of them or a clique. A healthy board doesn't put a lot of weight on titles. It's more of a job description, responsibility, and less about power, because everyone is equal in a cooperative and every co-op member, with or without titles, has just as much power as anyone else. So that helps also keep you grounded with, open, fair, and being transparent. And those are just some of the techniques that we've used out here that seem to have worked really well to get more board recruitment. We started out with just a handful of people, and now we often run with full chairs and boards. And so, yeah, and I appreciate to be part of this group and look forward to your questions.
Do we have any questions?
Has anybody had any issues when they've tried to recruit, or what techniques they've tried to use?
here at Prairie Lake Estates, we have a lot of problems with getting board members. We're 70 homes, and we're trying to build trust because trust just isn't there. I've been on the board. This is my second round of being on, and we just can't seem to get people to step up to the plate, not even for committees. And that's what we're at, because all the board's working over trying to do everything, so that's where our problem is. We just can't, it's like the lack of people, except for when they have an issue, then they're, right there to tell you, like you were saying, that they just come right at you on it. So any suggestions on how to get them motivated again, people motivated in running, wanting to do it?
Will you say you have trust issues?
Well, I mean, it's not that they don't trust us as a board, but everything they pick out at us and they're flying at us with it. Even though my biggest thing being on the board is when I talk to someone, I kind of do what you do. And then I say, well, if you have concerns, you can always run to be on the board, because we always need new ideas, fresh, so I kind of, like you put it that way, like, okay, I put it back in their plate as, you can be helpful to us if you have concerns of how things are being run and that. So yeah, we have some trust, not necessarily how we're like budgeting or anything like that, but sort of how they perceive of how we're, I guess, maybe handling. We have open board meetings, we have everyone talk, we have everyone bring their concerns, but I don't know, there's just something off that we're trying to figure out, but it's really hard to get board members to.
Well,
For
and
us.
if you come at them and say, well, you could join the board, sometimes people could take that as being passive aggressive. So if it's a small issue, like one of your common issues, you could just, well, what would fix this? Is there any calls you can make? And put just that tiny little issue
Mhm.
and that research in their purview, and then maybe that will just start a little bit, even though it might be an operational thing or a rules thing. It gets them to do some research, and then they can come back, meet with you again, and then you can just talk about it. That isn't on a formal, like, volunteer chair to member, but is like neighbors talking about an issue.
Mhm.
And problem solving might help in that regard.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm from Five Lakes Cooperative in Fairmont. I've been on the board this is my 7th year. I joined the board because I wanted to be involved in my community. I was new to the community and I wanted to be involved. And I wanted to, we were a new community, we had just purchased and made a cooperative. So that's why I joined, but we are down to a board of 4 people now. I'm currently vice president / secretary because no one would run for any of the offices. We have a lot of elderly. We have the problem of communication is we have a lot of people that don't have access or know how to use laptops and have emails and things like that. One of our board members, we communicate with her by phone. And there's times she feels left out, so we do make an extra effort to make sure that she's included. She's a really good member of our board. We're really struggling to
Do you have a
get
newsletter?
somebody new
Do
on
you
the
have a
board.
newsletter in your community?
For a short time, we did have a newsletter. Unfortunately, the person that was writing it, and she did a wonderful job, her brother-in-law moved away, so then her husband didn't want to be on the board, and so she dropped off too. But she was doing a great job. So we've tried to include a small letter in our monthly billings, but that's another job that our office manager has to do to come up, we try to come up with things at our meetings and then keep it kind of concise, to let people know what's happening, like, even if it's simple things like reminding them not to park on the streets during snow season, or that there's something coming up, take advantage of our citywide cleanup. And we actually, this time, we actually provided a number where people who were elderly and couldn't get their stuff out for the citywide pickup, that we have, we got a trailer and went around and picked things up for people. So hopefully that built a little bit, but it was still kind of limited. Yeah, it seems like it's been a real struggle. They don't seem to have the interest. We've talked to different people and it's, well, I have too many other things, or, there's just,
Could be one of two
don't
issues.
have that compassion for it that I did when I joined the board.
Well,
How many
no,
homes in your community?
How big is it's 85 homes.
Oh, that's a good size.
It is.
Do
To be
do you
really
have
im-
any kind of a social environment?
When
speak
we
of?
first started this 6 years ago, or right before, they used to have a yearly like potluck picnic. Of course, with COVID, that kind of went away too. And we've had like at our annual meetings, we've tried doing a potluck type thing for that. We tried raffles to see if we could get people to come to the annual meeting. We only need 18 or 19 families represented to come to the meeting. That didn't work. We've provided refreshments. We've changed locations to make it more accessible. I don't know. What's next?
Maybe they're really happy with the job you're doing and don't have any issues and have become complacent. There's a
We
positive
haven't
side.
had a lot of complaints. I mean, we do get some, and like you say, they're right there to complain, but then they're gone. Like, okay, I did my complaining, now I'm gone.
Yeah, I empathize with you. I know that it's a struggle. I know that we have a fairly robust social environment in our community, but I can tell you that there used to be in the early going 15 to 20 people who would show up out of 450.
Wow.
But we stayed at it. We kept at it. We kept at it. We were consistent with when we had things, what we had, and how often we had them. And there's still a lot of people who don't take advantage of it, but we'll have 125 to 130 people at an event now, which is a fairly good representation of the overall community. And that's all we're looking for, is to get enough representation that the word gets out to the others that it was a great time at the social last night. Or we have folks who have we have cribbage nights and things like that, bingo nights. But it's just a question of it doesn't take a lot of money. It just takes someone to take an interest and to keep plugging away at it. There's no doubt there are a lot of communities who are struggling really hard at this, and my answer is always press on and if you find something that's working a little bit, adjust it, ask people how they felt about it, make changes, always push, because I think eventually you push through, because I think eventually people start figuring out that this is a great community, and I need to give something back.
And we just got news that we're actually getting 2 new homes in our community. So hopefully, that's going to spark a little interest too. Recently we had lost 2 homes to fires, and
Oh, wow.
2 homes to evictions, and 1 abandonment, and things like that. But so hopefully, we had a new one come in last year and we got 2 new ones coming in now. Maybe that will hopefully spark a little bit of it.
Do you have your membership committee? Do you have a membership committee?
The membership committee, no, we can't get any committees to go. We've
Okay.
got our board of 4
Okay.
people.
That's a great opportunity for the board to actually interview folks. As you're vetting folks to come into your community, hit them with asking them about their interest. Obviously, do a good job of explaining what cooperative is all about. The fact that they're an owner, that they have a say, and more importantly, what are your skills and how can you contribute to our community as a cooperative? You know, we have an interest sheet that lays out all the possible skills somebody could have that would interface with skills that we need in our community. And we try to convince people right at the interview that this is an area where we'd like to have somebody call on you.
We actually do have 2 meet and greets scheduled for the next week or so from 2 families that have moved in. One of them, we have an issue of language, and we're trying to get a translator. The one translator we usually use, she is out of the state at the moment. So that's one of the issues that we have had with several of the families is language. Not only having elderly, but then also having people that don't understand what we're trying to talk about.
Yep. Do you
But
have a
that's
lot of
giving me
folks
some
that
good ideas there.
do you have a lot of folks in your community that have a language barrier?
Off the top of my head, there
You have
is
several?
probably about 5 or 6
Oh, that's-
families where it's more difficult. Maybe one person in the family is fluent
yeah.
or semi-fluent in language.
It would be good if you could convince somebody in those families that have an ability to translate.
Right.
To
I
be
have
at those
one
meetings.
neighbor and I'm working on her.
That's a good opportunity to get them started. Just helping out in that interpretation piece.
Right. Well, you've given me some ideas, and Melinda's on here. She's from my co-op too. So just us hearing from you and what you say, hopefully that will give us some ideas. I think probably Julie's familiar with some of these conversations that we've had.
Absolutely. And I've
over
had
the
them with
last couple of
everybody
years.
else on this call too, I think.
Yeah. Julie was with us at the beginning, so.
Yeah. And if these things sound familiar, I think everyone can identify with having this challenge. And that's part of why we do Common Ground, right? To talk about all of these common challenges, because I don't know one resident-owned community that says, yep, we're perfect. We have a whole roster of people to replace us, and we have too many volunteers and too many committees. Like,
Yeah,
that doesn't exist. So.
not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. Not even.
Even in Kim's community, right?
Yeah, no, we're not satisfied at all. Not satisfied at all.
For those of you that haven't been to like CLI, a lot of us have been to Kim's community and had viewed it. They have 2 clubhouses and they are very active. So that's why, you know, when you hear him say that they come from what they did, you know what I mean? And a lot of us have went to their park and have seen their community. So, but I just wanted to put that in there as a.
Yeah, it wasn't always easy, but the bottom line is that we've all got a job to do, and we have to get up every morning and be as creative as we can be. And attending things like this is a perfect way to sort of listen to other folks, and you might pick up one little piece of information that helps you get started on a plan that bears fruit. Maybe doesn't bear fruit for the first week or 2 or the first month or 2, but eventually everything you try will bear some fruit, and some things will bear more than others. But and the idea is to look at those things that are working and expand on those. As I said, we don't stop expanding because
So keep trying different things.
yeah, I mean, we believe that people being in the know is the most important thing we can do, because that's them being in the know is to understand that they have a say. And there's nothing more powerful than a community feeling like they have the power.
I have a question for Bobby Grubb. So Bobby, you recently joined the NCF board. Did you volunteer to join the NCF board?
No, actually, I was recruited by Pat, who's actually in the chat. I did a common ground last year with Pat, and they were discussing bringing new people onto the NCF board, and they needed a representative from the Wisconsin communities, and my name came up. Because I mean, I've attended most of the common grounds that I can, and I'm very active in the ROC communities. So Pat talked to me, and then Tori talked to me, and I decided that there was something I wanted to do.
So somebody asked you.
Yes. I was
And Pat,
asked.
how did you get on the NCF board?
Okay, I had to get myself off of mute. I got to the NCF board because the executive director of NCF at that time, named Warren, sent me an email saying that he wanted someone on the NCF board who would sort of be the voice of everyone who lives in a community. Not everyone on the board at NCF, you know, they're professionals and everything, but many of them don't live in a ROC like I do or like Bobby does. And he wanted someone who could see things from that perspective and bring up points that might be helpful in the voting process or that kind of thing. So I was asked, yes. And
So-
I had to call him to say, I was very honored to be asked, but I was doubtful about whether I could contribute anything. I'd never been on a board of directors before or anything. So I called Warren and said, I'm willing to be participating, but I don't know if I have anything to contribute. I don't know that I know enough about what to do or anything. And he was able to share with me that just having you there and having you listen, ask all the questions you need to ask. That's how you learn. And that's what lets us know what kind of information it would be helpful to the ROCs to have, and how we could be more transparent in our own way, how we could serve you better. So again, it was being asked and then questioning and being told, yeah, yes, we do want you. Please come and join. Try it.
Yeah, and so thanks for that, Pat. It took some convincing, and the reason I asked Pat and Bobby was because you know, NCF, we were down in numbers at the NCF board too, and it's taken some real concerted effort to recruit new members to the board, and it required asking people and convincing people who were doubtful that they could do the job. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because my experience has been that that's usually what happens is people don't know what the job entails. They probably are a little bit like reluctant because they don't think they can do the job. They need more information. And so I asked that of Pat and Bobby because we asked them to join the board, and we had to convince them that they would add value to the board of directors. And they're both really valuable contributing members of the NCF board. And it turned out. So I bring that up because I think that that's what it takes. Usually people don't volunteer. Usually it takes somebody to ask them personally, and it takes some convincing. It's, you know, you may not get a yes the first time. And usually you have to say, yes, you can do it. And we'll be there for you to help you if you have some questions and you need, you know, some training, some convincing.
I think it would also be helpful maybe to share with them experiences you've had the opportunity to be involved in. I mean, I have been involved, like through the NCF board, involved in so many things that I never thought I would ever have the opportunity to do, and have had so much personal growth from that. And the people I've had the opportunity to meet as being treasurer on the Park Plaza board, and that, I mean, there's a lot of not just what you can do for others, but what comes to you totally by, I don't want to say default, but that's the only word I can think of. What comes to you totally as part of the experience that you would never imagine. And that's what makes it so rewarding to people. That's what makes it rewarding for me. I can't speak for everybody else, but yeah.
I think, yeah, the important message is you got asked.
Yes.
People got asked. And I think that one of the things that also might be something to think about is having a plan for asking. People don't realize what the qualifications for being on the board are, and they don't have anything, they're less technical and more caring qualifications, and having an interest in learning more about being on a board of directors than anything else. And so you might have folks in your community that you want to target because you know they have skills and you know they have a caring bone in their body. Not that everybody doesn't, but you've sensed that they're sort of searching for a way to be helpful because, you know, as Tina says, people will complain, but the first thing about complaining is to understand that people who complain care. They wouldn't be complaining if they didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you can target people in your community as people you think would make a good contribution, and ask and have a conversation about that ask as well in terms of understanding, letting them understand that the qualifications that they have are the qualifications that you need. And you'll have much better luck than saying, well, I'm not really interested. I don't think I could do that, or and then walk away. No. And as Tom said, you know, the first time you might get a no, but continue the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Kim, question for you. I just thought of this. It's kind of stemming off of Tom's question. Since I know you're part of the ROC Association for the New England region, your term is up. How are you recruiting for your position since your term is up in the New England region?
Yeah, I speak about it every chance I get with folks in this region when we have Better Together calls, or I've actually visited a few of the communities, not so many lately because of COVID, but the fact of the matter is that there's several people I've talked to about it, and I think there's going to be 2 or 3 people who will step up and say, I want to get in the race, and if they don't, I'll be speaking to them directly when I find out, just because they've showed some interest and they can and should step up. Natividad.
So we started with a large board of 7 when we became a co-op, and it continued on for quite some time. And it has gone down to 4 board members, one of which we have to call because she doesn't have access to internet. And so all of our communication with her is via the mailbox or through the telephone. It's been a big struggle all these years. We've sent out a lot of our mailings for the last 1.5 years have gone through the mail. We've done annual meetings where we've told people what the descriptions are for each job that is available for seats on a continuous basis, sometimes both in English and Spanish to those who need it. No matter what you do, we're in a working community. A good majority of our families are working. So a lot of times the husband is home late, just in time for dinner, just in time to spend a little bit of time with his family and then go to bed and start the next day. Some of the moms do not leave the home for extra curriculum unless it has to do with kids. So it makes it really tough when you're in a working community to get board recruitment. For every single person that does come into the community, Nancy tries really super hard. Nancy's our on-site manager, to recruit them onto the board. It doesn't even matter if they are going to say yes or no, she's just going to do it anyway. So we've tried that aspect. We've even tried to get people that speak a lot of Spanish, that are fluent in Spanish, and that hasn't worked. We're at 4 board members for the last, oh gosh, 4 years, I believe, Tom. Is that somewhere around there? 4 or 5 years. I'm both the president, the secretary. I'm doing the monthly newsletter, of which consists of a calendar with stuff on it, because the newsletter started to get to be too much. I work full time, plus run to the bank to deposit all the checks and everything else. There's mowing to be done and helping Nancy. Sometimes our community gets so busy, it takes 2 people to run it. So we haven't had any luck with recruitment whatsoever. We've even posted the job descriptions inside the community center. So when we were doing events, people could actually see what the job descriptions were. They don't take much. It just takes once a month. And then if you're doing an event, we ask that board members show up for the events. That doesn't always happen, but we do ask it. And as far as volunteers go, we do not have committees here. We do not have an operations manager. And if you ask people to help you on a particular project, they will generally say yes. It's very rare someone will say no, and if they do, it's because they're very busy. And so then we have to go find someone else, right? But for the most part, they generally will volunteer if you ask. But as far as doing it on a regular basis, that doesn't happen because of the fact that everybody's working. So it makes it tough.
I have a question for anyone who's living in a family community where, you know, everybody's working and it's difficult to get people, as Natividad says, they just get home in time for dinner, and the last thing they think about getting through dinner and then going to a board meeting. Have you ever thought about finding a more convenient time? As an example, is it unheard of to have a board meeting on a Saturday morning at 8 o'clock?
We've even hosted stuff that we knew wouldn't work for the families during the week to do it on a Saturday. We've had some good turnout and some not so good turnout. We even moved our national night out to a Saturday once, and that was a very big bomb. That didn't work at all. So to even imagine trying to get them to go to a board meeting at 10 o'clock would be really hard. The only time they attend that would be the annual meeting, and then everybody shows up for that. So
Well, that's good.
it's, you know, at least it's the annual meeting, and there's an opportunity to win some free rent. And there's food, right? We've hosted stuff with food, gift cards. We've tried everything you could imagine.
Mm.
So in the meantime, we just continue to push on, because that's what you have to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, we have a lot of working families as well. We have a huge diverse group. We have working families to retired to disabled. And it seems that when there's food involved, it causes a bigger draw. If there's a drawing involved, that also helps as well. And then evenings for us, because it's really hard to get families to want to give up their weekends. So we do most of our stuff in the evenings during the week, not on a Friday, generally not on a Monday, but yeah, weekends are hard for us.
Mm.
Yeah, our community is the same way. It also is very diverse, from working families to older people to or retired people to disabled, or in that case too. And it's hard with people that have kids, sometimes to even barely make some of our meetings. But we actually everybody knows our board meetings are always the 3rd Wednesday of the month that night, and they're welcome to join, and even on the call-ins, and they still won't call in. So
Yeah, we remind people a week before, 3 days before, and the day of. And sometimes that's helpful. A lot of people are just so busy that reminding them the day of is the best way to get people. We do that with events and everything else, for that matter, because people get busy and oh, I forgot it was that night. But in any case, I think that it's a question of every day you've got to think and be creative. Can never be defeated.
Sometimes we feel defeated.
Yes, I know. I can
You
understand.
know,
I can understand. I know.
I have a full plate, being on a couple of boards besides working full time. And sometimes you just want a break. And even when I tried to take a break, that didn't pan out. Even with a serious letter that included ROC USA, it still didn't work. No one wants to take on the president's job. Even if they paid you, they probably wouldn't take it on. It's extreme hat, you know, that if someone leaves the board, generally the president takes over that space, right? So I've been the secretary for a very long time. And, you know, it's not easy to continue to do that because there's a lot involved in the secretary's position as well. So it gets to be a bit much. I've been doing it for 11 years. One of that was interim. So you just keep doing it. I love my space in the cooperative life. I really do. But it sure would be nice if, you know, others could do more or take on positions. But I get it. It's a hard time. And especially with COVID right now, it's just even harder for families to give up any time. Time's precious right now.
Well, maybe like a good TV show and need to leave them with a cliffhanger. So they're intrigued because we posted on Facebook and it looks boring. It looks like everyday stuff, nothing major, nothing to be concerned with. I bet you if we put rent hike on our board agenda, we would probably get it.
Everyone
That didn't
attends
work
it.
for us.
Right. We just need to maybe start adding some fictional items just to get their attention.
Well, even if you don't post anything on Facebook, then it's like, is she sick? Is she not like coming out or what's going on? And then you're getting these private phone calls or private texts. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm just taking a break. I just need a break for a minute, you know? But yeah, it's a fun job. Everybody's in the same boat. You know, I don't even care if you have a board of 9, 10, 11 people. You're still in the same boat sometimes. And some of our people are passing away. We're getting up in age. And that's hard. We've had quite a bit of that in the last couple of years. And behind that, we're having 5 more babies this year. This is the 6th year in a row of babies in our community. So imagine that. Why is that? Cooperative life. It's great. The rent doesn't raise. You don't go anywhere. You own your house. You're part of a big pie that most people aren't. So let's have another kid. So there are pluses to the whole thing if you look at it, and then there are some negatives, right?
Yeah.
Who was it that offered free rent as an incentive at your annual meeting?
Park
Us?
Plaza
Was
does.
We do it too.
Okay. So is it like you offer 1 month or 2
1
months?
month.
Month in December.
Yeah.
Ours, it depends on our budget.
Yeah. And
We'll do
and
one full month. And then we had a second year where we had enough in our budget. We could do 1 full month's rent and another one we broke in half. So we had 3 people that could win along with free dinner. That seemed to
And
work.
we tell them that they have to stay for the entire meeting,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
entire
And they-
annual meeting. You can't be part of the drawing if you aren't there when the drawing takes place, basically. And it's the last item on the agenda.
Okay.
And you have
And they have to be a
current.
member in good
Yes.
standing.
You have to have your
Member
current.
and
Okay.
current, and that includes whatever extra, the late fees, water bill, everything has to be current. So they show up for that. And we've had times where we had enough money to do 4 full rents, and they get it for 1 month. And so it's a good time. It really is. It's a good way
I haven't
to,
tried that yet. That might be a good one to try.
oh,
Mindy,
it's so fun.
do that so that we can keep that idea at our next meeting. We have a
Yes.
good president, so
Yes, I have that in my mind.
She'll
Yeah.
help me.
We've
Yeah.
broken ours up too to do like, so one person gets 1 month off and then we'll take another so much and break it down. So somebody gets $100 off their rent, somebody gets $50 off their rent. So it breaks it up so we have more winners.
Okay.
But there's still, it's still like, you're not giving like 3 people 3 full months rent. Like our community is only 60 homes, but it's half of them are members. It's you know, so it's we're not offering 3 people three free month rent. And like they said, you got to be current, you got to be everything else.
Right.
Oh.
We finally have got our membership. I think I figured it out yesterday, is up to 73%. It went, which is really good because we started 6 years ago with just barely over 50. So we've increased, but if I can get them to come to the annual meetings, that's the next thing.
Do an icebreaker too and throw candy bars in
Yeah.
the big giant ones. We had a gentleman win the free rent 3 years in a row.
Whoa.
It's a real thing.
too.
It's a raffle. You can't make it up. So his ticket got pulled 3 years in a row, and on the 3rd year, he put it back in and said, "Do it again and give it to somebody else."
Oh, that's sweet.
That was nice.
We've had, I've given away my, like, I've won like $100 off rent, and I've given it to another member that needed it the most. Somebody that couldn't afford to pay, you know, or help them out, just kind of like a Christmas gift, because our annual meeting's right around Christmas. So as a Christmas gift, they get, you know, $75 off their rent, or, you know, somebody that's,
Nice.
you know, you don't have to keep it for yourself.
We have done some things like one year at Thanksgiving, we gave away Thanksgiving baskets. And it was a raffle type of thing, but and it was really well appreciated by the 2 people that won, but it didn't seem to generate anything beyond that.
I've got another thought about annual meetings. We also give away a month's rent and a $100 gift certificate and a $50 gift certificate for 3 prizes. But one of the things we also do is I spend a fair amount of time recognizing volunteers in the community, and
We do too.
I also have a little booth at the back of the auditorium and I plead with people that they should be helping. They should, you know, would love to have their help. And I go back to that booth toward the end of the meeting when voting starts, and I let them know I'm there, and I'd be happy to talk to you about volunteering in different committees that we have. And I have a sign-up sheet for all the committees, and I have a raffle there as well for a gift certificate for people who just stop by and say hi. So I get them to go to that booth to perhaps talk them into at least helping out a bit in one of the committee of their choice. And I have representatives for the committees there as well. And so that's another way to try to recruit some folks, is that you've got a captive audience at the annual meeting, recognize the people that, and have them stand, all the people that are helping out, and sort of throw a little guilt trip on the rest of them, whatever it takes.
I've been thinking over something that you presented at the beginning of this meeting regarding transparency, so the community will trust you because you're being transparent and you're sharing information and they know what you're doing. Can I ask you guys, for example, how detailed are your meeting minutes? Do you talk about, for example, why a certain vote had to be taken, or, you know, trying to explain more about what's going on to them so that they know they can trust you by seeing that they think you're making good decisions, or that you're being responsible to take care of them?
Our meeting minutes aren't that detailed. They do talk about everything that's voted on. They talk about discussion. And if the only thing beyond that is is just saying that the board voted and it was unanimous or whatever the vote was. What we are detailed about is when we have member comments before and after, we're pretty detailed about the members' comments and suggestions and questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I always try to acknowledge who asks the question in open forum. I basically go right down the agenda and I just start bulleting right under the agenda because the agenda is outlined right there. So you're just making the points and the important points and comments right off that. Any bills we voted on, I write the bills and the dollar amount and what it was for. You know, I don't get overly detailed. The only time I get overly detailed or drop names and such when it's important discussion and it's in closed minutes and that doesn't get out to the members.
One thing that we do for transparency, and I try to remind everyone, is our documents are open to the membership at any point. You can make an appointment and you can come in and look. And yeah, I understand some things are personal, but when you are carrying an aged receivables of 65,000, that's open source to your membership. And your membership needs to understand and see that. And if everybody knows they can be held accountable because they end up on the aged receivables with 6 months rent not paid, that's not necessarily a privacy issue because we're all in it together. And it does remind everyone that they're part of it and that they're also held accountable as well. And that information's there.
We've done the same thing, Tina. We have one particular person who will privately send a message and say, well, I want to see stuff. You're more than welcome to come to the office at any given time when the on-site manager's there and see stuff. The only thing you cannot see is people's other private stuff of evictions or behind rent because we don't want it out and about, and this particular person will do just that. So that's the only thing we keep private is that part, but the rest of it is open to everybody.
Yeah, we have our aged receivables because we, you know, sometimes people just don't understand, and we get our full financials and they can't take pictures and they can't make notes, but they can come in and look and say, oh yeah, we do. And we do have about 30 members that are, and then, you know, if your name could be on there, you may not want your neighbors to know that you might. and there are times when it's true hardships, but those are fair and few. But we do have, yeah, those are different stories.
We've only had the one person who's always asked, but for the most part, no one really does. The door's open every week, no problem. It's always open to anybody. And if even the board members, if they want to know stuff, they are more than welcome to make a phone call to the office or come to the office on a daily basis if they want. It's open. So
yeah, we share our financials with all the board members. They all get a copy.
So I see we're over minutes. Any last questions? So I'm going to wrap it up. Speaking of board of recruitment, as you know, me, Marjorie, Tina, and Kim are all part of the Outreach and Education Committee for the ROC Association. Our goal is to come in and provide assistance in communities. So with COVID, we'll do Zoom chats. We can talk to board members. We'll talk to TA providers, anything. We've done podcast interviews, everything. And that is our goal. And if you are interested in the Outreach and Education Committee in any way, shape, or form, go to myrocusa.org. And there is actually a button on there, and it will send an email to me or to Carol, who is the other co-chair on there. If you're interested in the Outreach and Education Committee, if it looks like it's something you want to do, or if you want us to come and talk to your board, your community about anything, we've all been through it in any way, shape, or form, becoming a ROC. So I'm going to wrap it up and say thank you for having us. And Emily, do you have any last minute, or Tina or Kim, Marjorie?
I just want to do a reminder that too, the first Wednesday of every month, we have our Better Together calls, in which you guys are all welcome to join. I know I see some familiar faces on here. I know Nativity Dot is usually there. Any questions on that? Ask your TA provider who it is, and they can get the link from all of us so that we can get your email to invite you.
Okay. Thanks so much, you guys. This was a good meeting. Very enjoyable and
Thank you.
knowledgeable.
Thank you guys so much. This is awesome.
Yep.
I'm going to
Thanks
send a
for having me.
follow-up email, and then I'll include everyone's contact information that's on the call. And I would encourage you, if you try anything from this session, maybe hit reply all and sort of talk about a win that you maybe had. And if you try something in the next few weeks, because I'm sure I want to make sure to end this call on a positive note where we can all share our successes as we go out and kind of try some of the examples that were shared this evening. So I just really appreciated listening to the conversation and being here. So thanks everyone, and thanks to the Education Outreach Committee. Bye everyone.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having
Thank
us.
you.
Bye.
Good to see you guys. Bye, Kim.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.